What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing yet another beer from Põhjala, and they are out of Tallinn, Estonia, and this is their cherry garden. So they're calling this one an Imperial Gose Ale with cherries, and more specifically, according to their Instagram page, it is sour cherries. It comes in at 8% alcohol by volume, 10 IBUs, and at the time of review, this can is just under 8 months old. So I have already reviewed a couple Põhjala beers this year, and I said it in the last review that if I found something that wasn't a barrel-aged Baltic porter, I would review it, and this showed up about a month ago, and I was like, it's Imperial Gose with cherries. Yeah, let's give it a go. So I grabbed it. Now, the funny thing is, despite the fact that it's just under 8 months old, which might sound pretty old for some people out there, they do have a best by date of August 15th of 2025. This was canned on August 15th of 2022. So they're giving a 3-year best by date. Like, that's crazy. You don't typically see that, but it is Imperial Gose with cherry, so I'd imagine it'll be fine. And I'm drinking this one just under 8 months old, and here we go. So anyway, crack it open, get in the glass. Now, usually I don't drink a lot of Imperial Goses because you don't see them that often. Mostly Goses, brewed with sea salt. And typically, nowadays, a lot of them are fruited, but, they're usually like 4 to 5% because they're supposed to be refreshing and crushable. Imperial Gose, I don't know what to expect out of this. I'm hoping that it's pretty tasty, very simplistic in what it should be. So I'm hoping that it's delicious. Põhjala is pretty much 2 for 2 for me. One of the best beers that I've had this year, probably the best beer I've had this year, has been from them. So yeah, so that has this like jammy kind of look to it. It has like a deep, like dark red, almost magenta color, like a light purple. Hold it up to the light, can't see through it. Had about a half finger of this like very lightly pink colored head that is kind of dissipated to a small film on the top. But yeah, that looks kind of like, what you'd expect, like a sour ale with cherries. And in this case, it goes. Let's get a nose. Okay. So right off the bat, I can tell there's sour cherries as opposed to like sweeter cherries. Because the nose, a lot of times when I get beers brewed with cherries and typically like kettle sours, they usually have like a sweeter kind of like, and some folks might say medicinal, but like a sweeter kind of cherry nose. This does not have that. This is sour, tart kind of cherries, almost tannic cherries, like almost like a cherry. If you've ever had a cherry wine, if had a cherry wine before, kind of has that like aroma. Yeah, so it has a tannic like cherry skin, sour cherries, tart cherries. There's almost like a different kind of fruit in here, like maybe like a dark stone fruit, aside from the cherry, maybe like a plum. Yeah, I mean, that's all I'm really getting is the cherries. I'm not really getting a salinity or any kind of saltiness from the Gose base, with the sea salt typically in these. Sometimes with Goses and like Berliner Weisses and kettle sours in general, I can get like a slight doughiness from the base malt. This kind of smells like a cherry pie filling if it didn't have like that overt sweetness that it has. It's kind of just like, it's more of like a tart. So I haven't had a tart cherry, but I had they have grape pies in the Finger Lakes region. And that grape pie is kind of like a cherry pie, but they use grapes. And the grapes have more of like a tartness to them. And that's kind of what this nose is if like this was like a dark grape. I don't know. It smells pretty good. It smells like it might be refreshing. Again, it's 8%. This is kind of different. So let's get into it. Cheers, everyone. Wow. So, this is definitely a Gose. I'm getting the salinity on the taste, 100%. I'm also getting a pretty firm to high tartness into low sourness. Not quite mouth puckering, but I'll tell you off the first sip, this is very acidic to me, like very acidic. Mine, this is higher side of medium, lower side of full, 8%, kind of expect that. It kind of hampers the refreshing kind of drinkability you want from a Gose because it is 8%, so the alcohol is bigger and the actual body's bigger. So some might enjoy that. Me, I kind of understood going in, this is 8%, it's Imperial Gose, so I kind of figured that it would be bigger, but now I'm drinking it, I'm like, I think I'd rather have this lower ABV. The mouthfeel, it's not as bitey and crisp and effervescent on the palate as I thought. This is like mild to moderately carbonated. It has a nice smoothness on the palate, but I thought it'd be a little bit more carbonated. So body and mouthfeel, I think they're appropriate probably for what this beer is supposed to be, but I think I would like to see them a little bit better, especially the body. The taste, the fact that I wish they would have put sour cherries on this label, especially for somebody who's buying this and doesn't realize they are sour cherries. Now, if you know a Gose style, you know it's a sour beer, but you might not know they're brewing this with sour cherries because there isn't a lot of sweetness in this beer in general. The forefront, you get, or I get, there's a little bit of that doughy kind of malt presence that I do get in like Goses and Berliner Weisses. Well, Berliner Weiss more like a weedy, but like just say a kettle sour, right? But it's very minute in this. And then the cherry hits right after that. And the cherry is definitely, it's tart, it's acidic, it's slightly tannic, and that's the main character throughout the palate. It finishes with a very moderate acidity to this one. I feel like I'm gonna have heartburn by the time I'm done with this glass. It has a semi to full-on dry, more approaching dry finish. There isn't really any bitterness, maybe a slight like astringent tannic bitterness, but it's very, very small. It's more dry than bitter. The one thing I would have loved to see in this one is a little bit more sweetness, believe it or not. Like not crazy sweet, but just I think it's a little unbalanced. But again, for the style, a Gose is not supposed to be sweet, but you're using cherries. Again, because they're sour cherries, this one definitely is more sour, acidic, and tannic than it is sweet. I think this is actually a well-brewed, well-executed beer for probably what they're going for. Like, if you like sour cherries and you like acidic, tannic, dry beers, especially sour beers, this would be right in your wheelhouse. I will say the one saving grace for this, at least for me personally, is the 8%. I can't detect it. I know it's a little bit bigger because of the body, the fact they tell me it's 8%, but this isn't drinking substantially bigger, like feeling the alcohol, whether on the palate or like in the chest and in the stomach, more so than like a 5 or 6% beer. So they do a good job hiding the alcohol. That said, I think personal preference, and that's what my reviews are. If you come to my channel, hopefully you're looking for what I think or what I enjoy about the beer, my personal opinion on it, not is it brewed to style. Stylistically, for an Imperial Gose with cherries, if they specifically said sour cherries, they did a great job with this one. My personal preference, though, is I probably would have liked to see sweeter cherries or maybe a combination of both sour and like sweeter cherries. Maybe like dark red cherries, Bing cherries, maraschino, something sweeter. Because I think this lacks a little bit of sweetness from what I'm wanting. And I also think that tannic, acidic kind of sourness is going to impede myself personally as far as like heartburn goes by the time I finish this. So this isn't bad to my palate. I'd say stylistically what they're going for this beer, rating wise, I'd probably give this like a 4 out of 5, like a 4.1 out of 5. I think they've done a pretty good job with it. That salinity is nice. It's like all around my lips now. It definitely didn't notice it in the nose, definitely got it in the taste. So that's nice. You know, this is a Gose and not just like a kettle sour or Berliner Weiss without that sea salt. You know that it's there. But I just think I want something a little bit different. So personal preference, how I'm enjoying this Põhjala, their Cherry Garden. The best I can do on this one is a high 3.5. I'll go 3.6 out of 5. I think it's solid. I think it's fine. I'll drink the rest of it. Probably by the end of it, I'll be like, man, I shouldn't have drank all that because now I got heartburn and acid reflux and everything. So price point availability. Here's where I would definitely never buy this again just because of the price point. That was $6.99 a can at my local beer store. They're imported from Estonia. I get it. I mean, I paid like $13 or $14 for one of their barrel-aged Baltic porters. I know they're going to be more expensive. This specifically, the fact that I gave it 3.6, I'd never buy a $6.99 can. If it's cheaper where you live or you're in Europe and you can get this substantially cheaper, then I'd say check it out, especially if you like cherry sour beers. Give this a go. I think if another version of this showed up, let's say they did like a peach garden or a mango garden, would I try it again? I probably wouldn't at $7 a can, knowing the base, the fact that it's 8%, and I just don't think it's in my wheelhouse. But like I say, with every other beer, or every other, not every other, but like every single other beer that I review on the channel, the only way you know if you enjoy beer is if you try it yourself, really. So if this sounds good to you, give it a go. But $7 a can here in Buffalo, New York, and probably a very similar price throughout the Northeast, I would steer clear. And availability, I have no idea with Põhjala. I know we see them. They are imported by by Lime Ventures in Concord, California. So this probably sees pretty good distro throughout the country here in the US and Europe. I'm sure you can get them everywhere. I'm still going to buy more Põhjala. They're 2 for $3 now instead of 2 for $2 this year. I want to try something else from them. Maybe, I don't know if we'll see a lager here or something different that's not like a big barrel-aged imperial beer or imperial sour. Something different and something that I'm not accustomed to with them. So anyway, if you enjoyed this one, if you disliked this one, if you had this one before, post in the comment section. Let me know what you think about it. Like I said, biggest redeeming quality, the alcohol is really not kicking my ass, and I appreciate that one. So yeah, anyway, appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. To the next one. Cheers.